Hello, hello. Welcome, Facebook. Welcome, Local Growth Academy. Hope you guys are doing great on this Thursday afternoon. So we're going to talk a little bit about today about solopreneur to CEO. And one of the things that I tend to see a lot is getting out of working in the tools is sometimes pretty difficult. And what I found is that most of our clients that are stuck in this area, they tend to get stuck and not know exactly what to do, how to get past this little loop of getting in the tools, building the business, and then not knowing how to get out of it. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. One of the things that differentiates the person that is stuck working in the tools, so to speak, and can't seem to get a team. And we hear a lot of the same things, like I can never find good workers anymore today, and no one wants to work. You hear things like, I tried to hire people, and they don't know how to do the right thing, and I'm the best person in the business. And we also hear the same thing with systems and tools. I tried that piece of software, I tried that CRM, I tried hiring that agency. And over again, what we see is kind of the same patterns. And if you're in that group and you're doing 500 or less, you're probably in this. And honestly, maybe even up to a million. It tends to be like getting past a million, you tend to start figuring this stuff out. But if that's you, if you're kind of stuck in the tools, you're stuck in the grind of doing things, and that's what this live is going to be about today. So let's talk about what is the one thing that differentiates a solopreneur and the CEO. Well, I think one of the first things is leverage, right? So as an employee of the business, person slinging the brush, working in the tools, whatever it is that you do, you're limited by the capacity of that labor, right? And when you watch larger companies, million, 5 million, $50 million companies, the biggest thing that they have that's different than where you are right now is leverage. So what we're going to talk about is one of the first essential skills is how to create leverage. I believe one of the first things to be able to break yourself out of the tools, and actually, instead of creating a job and having a job that you work at, creating a business that starts to run itself, maybe not entirely, but at least parts of it start to run themselves. So the number one skill, I think, to get this moving, to get in the right direction, is leverage. And if you imagine a pyramid, the highest leverage things that we can do, there's really four major pieces of leverage that we have as business owners. And at the top of that pyramid, imagine like a food pyramid, the very top is media, right? Media. And it's been that way for a long time. Could have been theater actors back in the day, 60s and 80s, it was TV, political stages. Nowadays, social media, YouTube channels, your website, it's live, right? So creating media, it can be in any form. It could be video, it could be a blog, it could be YouTube shorts, Facebook shorts, maybe welcome messages for clients, SOPs. We'll talk about some of that. Any kind of written or video communication that we can spread out, it can exponentially do things. So that's media, that's at the top. Underneath that, I think the second most important piece of leverage that we have at our disposal today is code. Code allows us to do things faster than we can do as humans, and in most cases can allow us to do things automatically. So take tools like your CRM, like Drip Jobs. Tanner Mullen over Drip Jobs is our favorite. We love that tool. And there's other tools that are kind of in the same thing, like Zapier. Even if you're using another CRM, I use Active Campaign. There's other tools, but the point of that is that a CRM, automation, even some marketing tools allow you to leverage code to do something in a fraction of the time, and in some cases automatically, so there's no time. Whereas before it would require a whole lot of labor to sit there and do that thing over and over again, right? And we can see even modern factories that produce cars, they're pretty much all automated, run by machines and code these days. Whereas you take a car factory from the 40s and 50s, it was run by humans. So, which brings me to the next point. The third part of leverage is labor, right? And so, the most common thing that people go to the first for leverage is labor, right? You're building a contracting business, and you might probably aren't using media as effectively as you can yet, or at all. You're probably not using code as effectively as you are, or maybe you just have a CRM, you're getting started there. But the main thing you think about to create leverage is labor. So I believe that media and code are above that, but labor is still really important, really, really important. And ultimately, no matter what, you're going to need it, right? So labor is team members, coworkers, contractors, vendors. There's a lot of forms of labor, but getting help in your business, whether it's a marketing agency like myself or some of the other great guys that I would recommend working with, whether it's finding and hiring some great 1099 contractors, maybe hiring a couple W-2 people, maybe an office admin or salesperson, or outsourcing your bookkeeping and CPA tasks. All of these things are things that hold up your time that we can use leverage to labor, right? So super important. The last form of leverage, and it is huge, it is not small, but it's the least likely to be used by small businesses, is capital. So most small business owners start small businesses. Most contractors start contracting businesses because they don't have hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in capital to do this stuff. There are some out there, and with capital, you can normally do bigger things and you can normally do them faster. But mostly capital buys us the three things above it. It buys you media, it buys you code, and it can buy you a whole lot more labor, right? Once we have that stuff, all of those things together, capital, labor, code, and media, we can normally build some pretty cool businesses. So let's talk about some examples of how to create leverage. One of the first, and we kind of loosely mentioned this already, is a CRM. So some of the examples I'm going to talk about here have several mixes of these things. Remember, we have content, we have code, labor, and capital. Let's think about something like a CRM. TripJobs. Again, that's our number one recommended CRM. If you're not using it, please go to tripjobs.com and use it. It's awesome. Well, let's talk about what goes into a CRM. We talk about those four leverage points: code, content, labor, and capital, right? Well, a CRM actually combines the first three of those. It's code, right? It's a software system, so of course it's code, which means that it's going to have software tools to make certain things easier and easier to filter and see and do, has reporting, numbers, stages, and all these things that make your job of acquiring clients a whole lot easier, a whole lot more predictable, and way more professional. So there's that. But then what most people don't even think about is it's actually a content engine too, right? It's information, because pre-programmed into drip jobs is when a new lead comes in, there's a lead comes into the new lead stage, and what happens right away is content goes out in the form of email and text, welcoming them, thanking them for contacting you, and letting them know what's going to happen next. In every stage along the way, there's multiple forms of phone, text, and email communication that gets guided through the stages that you set up, or even if you leave it as default. So you have a sales pipeline that has designated stages for where your lead is in the pipeline. As an example, new lead, first phone call, appointment requested, appointment booked, proposal sent, proposal closed, those kind of things, right? And in every one of those stages, there's an opportunity for content. It's not just an empty shell on a CRM page. The CRM code is there, and it also can programmatically or automatically deliver the content. And it's going to come with some presets there, but you can customize everything. Create your own stages, create your own message, and make it you. So you create the customer experience that you want to. And content is leverage. Instead of you having to jump on a phone and answer 500 questions, you can have content that's delivered automatically by code sent out, which informs, educates, nurtures, and persuades your potential clients. That's pretty big as far as leverage. The last thing the CRM does is it has an implied labor component, because it's a software tool and it has content that we just talked about, but there's also people that go in there and they're running things. So there is a human component required to run a CRM. So there is a labor thing there, but it's drastically less labor because of the code and content that's being done programmatically, right? So that's one of my favorite things. And I think it's one of the quickest leverage things that any new business that's stuck in the tools can use. If you are not using a CRM, please check out Drip Jobs, or any other CRM for that matter, but I'd recommend Drip Jobs. But just get it, because the amount of leverage for code and content and labor is absolutely huge. Now let's talk about the next one. This one's really very obvious. Crews, right? One of the first things that you should seek to get out of is the crew work. It's the working in the tools. It's the most logical place to go, right? You're probably your own best salesman right now, because you know your story and your vision, and you probably haven't had the time to communicate it well enough to hire a salesperson. So the easiest thing normally to start to delegate labor is crews. So we think about getting, construction workers. At first, maybe you're still working in the job, but you're just hiring an assistant, right? That's a normal first hire. You build it and you're a solopreneur, you're just an army of one. The first hire is a labor helper. That's the first thing. Now, you might still need to be on the job with that person, but there's some leverage. I might be able to leave them for a couple hours where I go on a bid, right? There's a lot of leverage that comes with that. After that first person, maybe you hire your replacement. Maybe you hire a 3 or 4 person crew. Once you scale that up to, maybe $500,000, $250,000, $500,000 for that crew, now all of a sudden, probably closer to $500,000. Now all of a sudden you want to go to the next thing. You probably need more labor, right, to be able to fulfill that. So Nick Slavik has this really great saying that I love. He said, all business is leads and labor. I would modify it slightly. I believe that business is getting customers and having labor fulfillment. Leads by itself doesn't turn to jobs, but if you get leads, use a CRM and sales skills, you now have a customer. And then your second part of that is to fulfill that customer, is to go into the home and do the work that you promised and live up to the thing that you just sold, right? So jobs and fulfillment, right? Get customers and then do the job, right? And that requires labor. But, there's only 2 ways to scale labor. You can hire more people, or you can create more effective processes. So, if I've got a person that's working maybe 50% as effective as I could just hire a couple more, all at 50%. But what if I was to take other things and make them 60, 70, 80, 90% as effective as me? So those 2 things in combination are where we get the leverage from labor. We get time. We also have an efficacy of that time, right? How efficient are they? How good are they at doing the thing, right? And what we're really doing is scaling labor by creating SOPs. So when you hire people, one of the biggest things that in the crew part of this for scaling that I hear is like, oh, no one wants to work. No one wants this, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is that people are fine working. People will work. People typically don't want to work because there's not a clear vision or path for the job that they're in. There's not clear sets of expectations and standards. There's not clear training and things like that. So at a very fundamental level, if you're the business owner, you need to create, we'll talk about more in content in a second, but you need to create SOPs to train people. You need to have a vision statement for your company and where it's going. This needs to be written or recorded so that it can be given out. So when you were thinking about, we can hire more people, but with systems and processes, I can make those people in my team, more efficient. And yeah, hopefully I'm going to continue to grow and I'm still going to need more people. I don't want to overwork people, but I do want to make their lives more efficient. I want to make their goals clear. I want them to have a clear understanding. If I do X and then Y and then Z, this job is done and is considered good. They know what those quality standards are. They know the processes to do them. This is all documented stuff. And that's where SOPs come in, right? So when you take crews and labor, right, and then you use content, which is, SOPs are a form of content. You now have labor and content working together. You're using content, like documenting how I paint a wall, documenting how I would prep cabinets before painting, documenting any part of your business is then delegatable. As long as you document it accurately and completely, I can create this SOP, which, standard operating procedures, what that means if you don't know. SOP, if I create it and I make it complete, I can then share it. And that's a piece of content. Remember, that's one of the biggest forms of leverage. So now, when I really think about labor, it's not just dumb, uninformed labor. Labor by itself is not really a good way to scale. And that's probably where you're getting frustrated. You hire people and then you don't have SOPs, and then they quit, or they get frustrated, or they don't do the job the way that you want them to. That's super common because we don't realize that that's what they want and that's really what they need. If you were to go get a job at some corporate office, there'd be some training the first kind of training you'd get would be some basic training of what the company's about, what their vision is, the structure and what they sell and what they do and who they serve, basic stuff. Then you'd start getting job specific training. What is your role in this company? What are you going to do? What are your KPIs? What does it mean for you to be successful in your role? So if that's there for any corporate job, you are a corporation or an LLC or some sort of company. Even if you only have your first hire, you still need something. Now that's something today, if you're hiring your first person, I'm not saying it has to be a multi-hundred page employee handbook, but you start somewhere, right? Start with a simple vision statement. Start with simple guidelines and checklist of what different aspects of what their job is going to be, and communicate effectively what it means for them to be effective or not effective. What are the expectations for them to show up every day? What time? How are they going to get there? How should they dress? How should they act? Do you have phone policies, smoking policies, cleanliness policies? These things are things that you must communicate. And most people that I talk to that are frustrated with their workers are frustrated at uncommunicated expectations. So you expect your employee to not be on the phone, but you didn't have a policy for it. You didn't say so. You have expectations of, the breaks throughout the day or the quality of work that's met, but you're not communicating it. So communication is key, and communication for employees should be documented. This is what SOPs are about. Because when you hire the second person, you want them following exactly the same processes and having exactly the same expectations. And without that, there's confusion and, some other bad things can happen. So crews and SOPs together, you can use the SOPs, record them once, write them once, and you can dole them out to 1 or 1,000 employees and have the same result. All right. So let's talk about another common form here, web, social media, video, things like that. So we have the platform that I'm on right now. I'm on Facebook, right? I'm using a software tool called Riverside to stream to Facebook Live, and I'm using notes on Google Drive. So I'm using code to deliver content, right? Multiple pieces of code on my end to help me deliver content to you, right? So I'm leveraging these two things together. So web and social media, and I'm going to say social media loosely, like social media being Facebook, but also including like TikTok and YouTube and other things, like any platform that's going to allow you to deliver your message, we're going to lump in here. So if we combine content with this code, we now have a distribution platform. Now, maybe that platform is public, like this one. Maybe it's a private platform, right? Like a shared Google folder or a system like Trainual, which is both of those systems can be used for creating SOPs, right? So now we start getting into like a public content, private content. We have tons of that. We have actually multiple tiers of this. We have public content like what you're watching right now. We have content that is like for our clients, agency clients and our coaching clients, where it's behind a gateway. Like you have to have permission to get in. And then of course we have internal only SOPs that aren't shared with anybody other than us, right? So we have multiple layers of privacy, and that stuff's pretty normal too. But if you combine web and social media, it's pretty effective, right? You can create a piece of client facing or potential lead facing content that can attract new clients, and you create it and that lives on forever or virtually forever, right? You don't need permission to show your content in front of somebody. I don't need to book a room. I can just create it silently in an office with a blank background like I've got right here, and I can publish it out. And maybe one person watches this, maybe 10,000 watch this, maybe a million watch this. But nonetheless, I'm going to create this and someone is going to see it. And hopefully, if it's good, it's going to help somebody. And you can do the same, right? So now let's talk about next. In order to create leverage, right? In order to create these 4 leverage points that we talk about, one of the things that we need to do is we need to buy back some of your time. And I think this is a really, really important thing. I think the second essential skill set into growing and getting out of the tools and building a business, not a job, is prioritization. So the framework that I heard, I don't even know who came up with it, but I heard it a long time ago and I've been using it for years. The framework goes like this: do, delegate, automate, and eliminate. Okay, with those 4 things, every task that gets thrown at me, from a client request to a text message to something in an email to something a team member wants, something a potential customer wants, doesn't matter. I'm going to apply this framework, right? So let's talk about it. Do. So what this means is these are the tasks that I am going to accept. These are the tasks that require me to move the needle. They are deep thoughts. They have something to do with something that I cannot yet have any member of my team do. And depending on the size of your team, if you just hired your first assistant, that's almost everything, right? If you've got a team of 10, 20, 30 people, you probably are still leading the vision, probably leading departments, still checking in. If you're a huge company where there's thousands and tens of thousands of employees, this might just be high level strategic decisions, right? Maybe mergers and acquisitions or something, right? But for most of us mere mortals, where I'm at in my company is I have a couple things that I choose to do because I like doing them. But for the most part, I lead our sales, I lead our company vision, I lead the direction of our product. I don't actually do many things with the product. I'm not in the tools, so to speak, but I lead it and I lead our teams. I also kind of do training and stuff like that too within. So basically, content, lots and lots of content for me. I work on SOPs, product SOPs that then my team uses. I work on training and retraining those SOPs. I also work on conversations with clients and potential clients. So basically, I'm creating multiple forms of content, right? Now, depending on where you are, it could be different. But the point here is you should only accept do when the other ones that I'm about to go through don't apply. Do is the last thing. You want to try to do the next 3 first. So next one up is delegate. So, when you're hiring your first 1 to 5 employees, mostly this is probably going to be job stuff. It's getting out of the tools. It's painting the walls. It's laying the foundations. It's hanging the shingles, whatever it is that you do. That work is the first thing you're going to be delegating, right? You're probably still going to be doing sales and bids and stuff like that. But you need to delegate. And we already talked about SOPs and that part go along with the hiring, right? But you need to have a team in place. Hire first. Your first hire should be mainly for fulfillment, allowing you to get off the tools. Your first few people might be that, right? You potentially could have an office admin in there, right? Maybe it's an employee or two for the tools, maybe an office admin to help filter emails and calls to only letting you do the most important ones. That's a form of delegation. Hiring an office admin to answer the phone and only let the ones through to you, they are filtering and only letting the ones that do where it requires you is being filtered by the delegate that's answering all the other phone calls, answering all the other emails. You should have someone in your company that helps do that. That way you don't have to answer every call that can be answered by somebody else with some simple SOPs or like phone scripts of how to answer that phone, right? So a couple tips here. Hire slow, fire fast. Take your time in hiring. A lot of times people are just like, oh, I know this guy, he does a thing, let me just hire him. And they get frustrated that it doesn't work out. Take your time, get to know the person, have a few interviews, go out to lunch with them. I don't care how it is, what your process looks like. There's a bunch of ways, but it should not just be, oh, my uncle's sister does this, so let's just bring her on. That's not enough. Have a hiring process, and it should be multiple steps, and it should be universal for anybody, right? I would avoid hiring relatives and would avoid hiring friends. You got a standard, you got SOPs, or at least you're going to make SOPs hopefully after this. And you need employees are going to come on and they're going to do that thing. If they're friends or family, they may think they can get away with things. It's not really good to hire friends and family, especially early on, right? Especially early on. Later on down the line, if you've got a really established thing and you got a niece or nephew or cousin or something that wants to come on board and you got a system you can put them into and team members that are going to be held peer accountable to, might be a little bit better. But your first one or two employees definitely, I don't think should be employees. But hire slow with a process. And if they aren't working out, I say fire fast. Now I'm going to say that with a disclaimer. The hire slow, fire fast is an idea where we take our time to make sure that we hire the right person. And if they are bad at their job, we let them go. But we need to make sure that we're not hiring them for things that are our fault. If someone fails at doing a job and they followed your SOP and they actually followed it and it came out wrong, that's your fault, not theirs. We also need to allow for times for training. Even if your SOP for doing the thing was perfect and someone comes on, they may have had an old way, that some old habits and things that need to break themselves up. So give them some flexibility. But if you have given them things to do and they've shown that they're the type of person that's going to show up late, they're going to be rude, they don't care about our SOPs, or I'm just going to do it my way. In that type of thing, I'd fire them. I'd fire fast, right? That's me. So, but just make sure that you have training in place, right? Every company is going to make mistakes. It doesn't matter what you are. My company makes mistakes. I make mistakes. Every team member on my team makes mistakes. And I'm not going around firing people for individual mistakes, but I will fire people for deceptive actions, for being unethical, for being outright lazy, for outright being rude to clients or other team members or to me. There's things that are going to be, you have to figure out exactly what that is for you. Figure out that line in the sand and let them know what it is. Communicate it again through SOPs. And if they cross that, fire fast. Okay. Next up. So we got do, we talked about do, and we talked about delegate. Well, let's talk about next up is eliminate. Most of the time, the tasks that we put on our task list are stupid. I don't care if you're using a checklist on your phone or you write things down on pen and paper, you have Post-it notes. Anecdotal story. I had a boss in the military that used to write Post-it notes on everything, and you'd go into his office and it'd be 100 Post-it notes everywhere. It was crazy. It was really funny. But anyways, it doesn't matter what you do with how you keep track of your task. The fact is I could probably look at your task right now, your task list right now, the things that you tell me you need to do, and I would guarantee you there's double-digit percentage of those things, 10% or more, maybe even up to 50, that do not need to be on anyone's task list. They don't need to be delegated to the next person. They just aren't that important. There's sometimes these little things like, oh man, I really got to stop everything I'm doing and update this one photo on my website because it's really going to make or break the difference. It's probably not, it's probably not going to do it. The things that we need to think about are if everything in business is really around creating customers and then doing the job, right? What is it that you can do to make getting customers better, easier, cheaper? What is it that you can do for the fulfillment side of things that's better, easier, cheaper, right? That's where you need to spend your time. And if the tasks that are on your things don't do that, and it's not for you, so you're not going to do it, it can't be delegated because there's not enough time, it's not enough priority, then chances are if you are not willing to do it, and it's not something that you should be doing, and it's not something that your employees should be doing, there's a very, very good likelihood that it shouldn't be done at all. So take a hard, realistic look at your task management and be ruthless with where you spend your time and create some sort of baseline for how to vet out tasks. We have an idea board where we put a bunch of tasks in and it's in this one spot, but it doesn't get moved to like in queue or in progress or really being thought about until we've had a chance to vet them. I can tell you that every week I write down tasks and I don't schedule them right away because I know that I'm going to go back through and relook at them. And half the time I go back and delete those because I know that they're not urgent, they're not important, and they don't move the needle in my business. So take a hard look at that and see if there's things that you can eliminate. Next up would be automate. Right? And we've talked about this before with software and tools and content. What can you automate? So the process here for creating this prioritization is do, delegate, eliminate, and automate. So if it's not for me to do, it's not delegatable, and it's not something that can be eliminated, we want to say, can we automate it, right? Anything that is repetitive should be up for queue for automation. Anything from like a monthly marketing report to a welcome message after you fill out a contact form from your website, maybe notifying your lead crew person that a job just closed and attaching the invoice. These are things that can be automated. And again, favorite tool here is to use DripJobs CRM to get that in queue. There's so many automatable things in that platform. But there's some other tools like appointment booking software. Like I use a tool called Calendly. It allows me to book meetings in a fraction of the time of multiple calls and phone calls and text messages and emails back and forth. I just have a link I send people. They click the link, they book a calendar. I keep my calendar accurate, but they can book a calendar anytime. I don't need to have 20 communications back and forth. Are you free at 2 on Tuesday? Oh, no, I'm not then. How about Thursday at 1? Nope, not then. How about Wednesday at 5? I don't have time for that. I just don't. It's a waste of my time and frankly yours as well. There are tools for like $10 a month where you can create appointment systems and you can just share the link with people and they can book their time on your calendar. And all you have to do is keep a relatively accurate calendar and you're good to go. What about repetitive admin tasks like automated invoicing? When I bring on a new client, I have to create the first invoice, or someone on my team will create the first invoice, right? Do you think that I'm going to remember all of my clients to create an invoice I remember my clients, but am I going to remember all of my clients' invoices every month? No, I'm not going to. So using QuickBooks, which is a common small to medium business software, I can create recurring invoices. And so I bring a client for X dollars a month, and the next month invoice automatically sends. I don't do it. No one on my team does it. It's part of our process, part of our SOPs. When we bring on a client, there's an actual checklist. We have an SOP for bringing on a new client. They have to sign an agreement, pay an invoice, schedule a call. Like there's some things that have to happen. And one of those minutia there is creating a recurring invoice because I don't want to spend another minute on that task. It's dumb to, right? So for anybody that has like repeat business or, just get it automated, right? What about automated follow-ups, right? You can have, not all follow-ups should be automated. Caveat here, right? You need to have personal touches. I talk to my clients on a regular basis, but some of our communications are automated. The ones that can be, schedule request, maybe a job report, things like that. Whatever you can, create as many follow-ups as you can. Maybe maybe your jobs, you always do the same kind of job, right? Maybe you do exterior painting and it's always a 5-day process in your area with whatever it is that you do. And you know that day 1 we do X and day 2 we do Y, so on and so forth. Well, you could have a follow-up sequence that sends a text message at 8 every morning, say, hey, we're on the way to your property and here's what we got in queue today. Now, if it's the same type of job every time, you could do that. If it's not, maybe you have some presets or whatever. But the point here is to think about what is repetitive. What is a routine admin task that has to be done? Finance things, communication things, appointment requests that can be done. Lead nurturing is a huge one. So between tools like your CRM and Zapier and a calendar system like Calendly, your accounting software, there are tons of admin tasks that you can automate. And anytime I have a task that comes to my plate that repeats over and over and over again, I immediately try to find a way to automate it. I'm not lazy, but I'm really lazy when it comes to doing the same thing over and over again. I don't like to do that. If it's something that's not creative and problem solving, that's unique, I don't want to do it. I want to create a system to automate it, or I'm going to delegate it, or I'm just going to completely eliminate it. And that's me. So do, delegate, eliminate, automate. Now, once you've reclaimed time, now it's time to build the business to run itself. So let's talk real quick about some systems, right? We talked a little bit about there's automation and systems and SOPs and stuff, but let's talk about systems and some of the main areas that you need to create systems. First thing I want to talk about when you're creating systems and SOPs, standard operating procedures, systems. So an individual SOP is just an instruction to do this one thing, but a system is a collection of apps and processes and team members that collectively do something and how they do it, right? So between labor and code and content, you're going to create a system for something. It requires all three of them to make a system happen, right? So James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, says this, and I love this quote, one of my favorites. It says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." What that means in context and in the rest of the book is we often think that I have these aspirations to be here and my goal is enough to get me there. But think about this. Everybody that runs a race that's at the starting line, they all have the goal of running the race. Everyone there. What's the difference? It is not the goal that makes you win. It is the level of your systems and preparation and work, not your goal, not your aspirations, not your desires. Goals don't care. Results don't care how much you want it. They care the work that you put in to do it. So to rephrase this, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You will fall to the level of your systems. And any failure point you have in your business, and this is true for me too. This is not my truth. It's all of our truth. It's our human truth. Every time I fail and I look and give myself a hard look in the mirror, something I did wrong or didn't do at all caused it. Every time, right? So we don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So let's talk about the main places where you need to think about systems. The first one is marketing. You have to have marketing systems. The next is nurturing. How do we get a lead from a lead to a sales opportunity? The next is the actual sales component, doing the bid and actually convincing them to work with us versus somebody else. After we do those three things, then we have to fulfill the job. We got to go do it. We're going to go do the thing that we said that we're going to do, right? And then another thing that we like to do is, what are we doing after the job is done? We call it an advocacy component. And that means after I've got a happy client, what am I doing afterwards to get a review, a testimonial, referral, or even repeat work from the same person? What am I doing there to create more engagement and a happier lifelong customer, right? So real quickly, let's talk about these things and break them down just a little bit. In the marketing side of things, let's say a person decides they need a home service. What happens? They go to their phone and their computer and they start a search. They go onto Google and they search for you. Maybe it's a Facebook ad and they're scrolling and you found them, but some way they're going to start this journey of looking for you. Something that you did or said, some piece of media or website or ad or organic result or social post is going to catch your attention. That goes back to the content thing for leverage. we're using content like a website or a Facebook ad or a Google ad. That is a leverage point that's going to capture their attention. And then they start engaging with that piece of content. Like, let's say your website. They start reading your website, and something in there persuades them, you know what, this is the right company. I trust them enough to at least get a quote. So then they take action. They call you, they fill out a form, they do something. Now at this point, they're a lead. And now we have a lead that doesn't give us customers. All by itself, it does nothing, right? Now we have a lead, someone that's expressed interest, but now we have human and software components that are going to come in. The lead is replied to and guided with a scheduled appointment, hopefully by your CRM automatically. Maybe you have a manual process of pre-qualifying people before you put them on the schedule. There's lots of variants here, but you need a process here, right? And you should use a combination of your CRM and humans to do this, right? The goal is they're going to get replied to and guided. They're going to schedule an appointment over the phone or over a piece of software. And then once that appointment is set, we're going to let them know what to expect next. So we take a lead, we answer any questions, we nurture them, we guide them to booking an appointment, however that works for you. Like I said, I use Calendly, but whatever it is that you use. And then from there, once they book the appointment, we need to confirm that appointment and tell them what's going to happen and what's next and educate. One of our buddies, and I think he's a part of this group too, Bradley Ellison, did, I think like a year and a half ago, did a knockout video. And it was a story video, like 3 to 5 minutes long. And it talked about how his bidding process worked and what it would look like when he comes into your home. Had a little bit of comedy. It was very well produced, but it most importantly was educational, persuasive, and very professional. And as soon as you booked an appointment with him, the automation sent out the link to this video and said, hey, watch this quick video and you can see what it's like to work with me. Fantastic, right? Again, content. We're using software to deliver the message, content to actually communicate it, right? All of that stuff happens in the nurture. Our goal in the nurture is to create a system that takes a lead that's expressed interest and convert them into a booked appointment and make them hold the appointment. Because even just booking the appointment and they cancel you, that's not good enough. We want them to book it, and we want them to be educated and confirmed and trust us enough that we're going to actually hold the appointment. And now we get to the third part, which is the bidding and closing and sales part of this, where we're actually going to go to the home, or maybe you do virtual appointments. That's fun too. There's a few people and a few jobs where you don't even have to go to the home. You just need to have a phone call or Zoom or a video walkthrough or something else. Whether it's in person or virtual, it's irrelevant. You're still going to have a component where you meet with a person. You're gonna greet them with an on-site consultation or some virtual consultation, and then you're gonna analyze their thing, their property, their job, to understand the specs, understand their concerns, and create a presentation and a proposal that answers the things that they're concerned about, right? And then if all goes well and you do your job well and you're a consultative and good salesperson, you'll get a signed proposal, a deposit if you take deposits. And now all of a sudden that lead went from a lead to an appointment and now to a closed customer. And they're now at this point got to put their job on the schedule, right? And then we get into job fulfillment. Now at this point, I've had clients in the past that had those first three things right. They had marketing dialed in. They had a great appointment setter and lead nurturing system. They got really great appointment rates. They had a kick butt closer that went, did a great job, super good close rate. And then they have crap fulfillment. And then really bad crew workers. They show up late. They're unprofessional. They smoke in the driveway. They leave trash. You know, they smell like pot when they show up. They're not respectful. They're not in branded uniforms. Like all of these things, right? You could do really great at these first three things and then have bad crews show up to your house and your reputation's out the window. So the next system you need to think about is what happens on that job. And that's where these job SOPs come in that we talked about earlier. What is the system? How do we alert the customer that we're on the way? What are we doing that day? How do we communicate that? When are my crew showing up? Who is showing up? What are they doing? What order are they doing it, right? Key aspects here, the crew should show up on time and professional, treat homeowners with respect, communicate effectively. Even if something goes wrong, they're not rude, they're calm, cool, and collected, right? The job needs to be completed on time as promised. Unless something new comes, then you communicate that and reset the shifted expectations. You or your crew lead needs to do complete QA walkthroughs at sometimes multiple stages through the job. Maybe for you, it's just one, especially if it's a smaller job, but you need to make sure that you got approval and sign off. And if any issues come up, you need to handle them appropriately, professionally, get them done. And where appropriate, just get them knocked out. If it's extra, I mean, that's your policies. It just depends. Sometimes like painting something, you discover that there's rotten wood. You may have to repair it later. Sometimes if you're doing a remodel, you pull off drywall and you realize there's mold behind or 2x4s that are rotten. There can be undiscoverable things you don't know until you get into it, right? I would say if you have that kind of work, you communicate it ahead of time, but to the best of your ability. But no matter what, if issues arise, handle them professionally. So be professional, do what you say you're going to do, answer questions and concerns as they come up, and you should be good, right? And then the last component here is advocacy and referrals. So if you've done all four of these, you're going to have a real happy customer. But how can we take a happy customer and make them a lifelong advocate and create more customers from it? This is a system and an often overlooked system. I was on a call earlier with someone, great company, 3 reviews on a Google profile. 3, right? That's not a lot. If you are a local business, local contractor, and you only have 3 reviews, you're missing this section entirely. Once the client is happy, we got to get that right first. That's what the step 4 is about. Do the job, make them happy. Now that we're here, we want to take the happy customer and we want to see if there's anything that we can do for ongoing maintenance or warranties. Some companies create like extended warranty programs that are an optional add-on that they could do. Maybe you extend a paint job from 2 years to 5 years. Maybe there's an extra roofing warranty or remodel warranty or whatever it is that you do. You can have extended warranties on that. It's one idea. Getting online reviews, video testimonials, written testimonials in any form is ultimately going to be content once they write it and record it. It'll be content that can be leveraged for the next person. It's one of those 4 main types of leverage. You're asking the customer to create content, though. You're not creating, saying, hey, I worked with Sally Sue, it's great. Sally Sue is coming on and saying, hey, I worked with Micah and it was a fantastic experience, and here's why you need to do the same. Now that piece of media becomes leverage. So Google review, Facebook review, Yelp review, video testimonial, doesn't matter what. I prefer Google reviews, but a lot of options. Just get something every time you can, right? And then if you can also create a system where you keep in touch with them over a period of time, maybe after they're a customer, they go into like a drip sequence in your CRM where you keep in touch with them, until they opt out of your list. You just touch base once or twice a year and just say, hey, so-and-so, how's it going? And I know we did a job with you recently. Just wanted to check up, see if you have any questions, concerns, anything. Having checkpoints after your job is really, really professional. And that can go a long way. Maybe there's something that went wrong that you had already left and you've been out of the house for a couple of weeks, and it was a deal, but enough to make them unhappy, but they didn't catch it at the time, and maybe they didn't say anything then, but it's something that's really quick and easy for you to change. And doing so might make them even more likely to leave you a testimonial or to refer you to a friend, right? And other things you can do here in advocacy is create referral programs. You may be incentivized, maybe not, right? You can print out some business cards with a little blank on the back with referral incentives if you want. There's a ton of different ways that I don't have time to get into today, but creating a program that works for you to incentivize referrals and honestly doing a great job and treating people right is the key to that. You're not going to get past it without that. But if you're already here and you've done this first 4 right, our main thing that we want to think about is, how do I keep in touch with them? Is there anything that I can do to keep an ongoing maintenance or work relationship with them over a period of time? And that's not for every job, but some jobs can do that. Is there anything I can do to get a review or testimonial that can be shared as media for leverage later? And is there anything that I can do to get them to recommend them to a friend or family member or church member or something else? And if you can do that, that system will turn back around and give you more people in your marketing, and then you follow right back to the 1 to 5. Key takeaways here, right? Main takeaways: leverage. It's 4 ways of leverage. We want to leverage those 4 ways so that we can maximize our time and turn the least amount of time into the highest amount of output. To make that happen, the second thing is we need to prioritize our time. What are we spending it on? Do, delegate, automate, eliminate. Super, super important to maximize our time. And the third thing we talked about today was creating systems. Creating systems is super, super, super important. Remember, an SOP is just one gear, right? An employee is just one gear. You are just one gear. A system is a balance of training and knowledge and SOPs and teammates and code and all these things together. They are the systems. And we talked about the 5 main areas of systems that you probably need to think about, which is marketing, nurturing, sales, fulfillment, and advocacy. There's probably some others as you scale up further, where you think about like HR and hiring systems, finance and systems and growth systems. There's some other things, but those 5 are absolutely critical to being able to get customers in and to be able to create lifelong happy customers, which all of that's required to be able to even do the other things. So those are my 5 minimum. So those are the 3 things that we talked about: systems and prioritization and leverage. All right, guys. So that's it for this. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys. I appreciate you being here. If you're here, thanks so much, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye. Hey, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you're looking for help growing your contracting business, I invite you to join my free community. In there, we go live with amazing trainings, share resources and downloads, plus you get free help from me and from peers. That link is down below to join, and we'll see you in the next video.